Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. 3 out of 4 of us have suffered from back pain at some point in our lives. Although most of those issues get resolved, millions of Americans suffer debilitating pain that limits their daily activities. We spend $100 billion annually on back pain, and not for tests or treatments, but principally for disability payments. A medical doctor who served at UVM and then Dartmouth over the last several decades has written Talking Back: How to Overcome Chronic Pain and Rebuild Your Life. From his experiences about dealing with chronic pain for which there is no easy or obvious cure. I'd like to welcome the book's author, Dr. Rowland G. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Fran. It's a pleasure.
So there was an urgency for you about writing this book upon your retirement. Who did you write it for?
I wrote it for people who are disabled by chronic back pain that has no easy solution. People who can't do the things that are important to them in their lives, like either working or taking care of their kids or going to the grocery store even, playing sports, just being active because they have back pain.
Okay, so in brief, what is a functional restoration program which you have run?
So functional restoration programs are intensive rehabilitation programs, typically running 3 to 6 weeks, and staffed by multiple disciplines: medical doctors, physical therapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, athletic trainers, and sometimes social workers. To help people to restore the flexibility and strength and endurance that they need to perform the activities of daily living or work that are important to them.
So you have a chart here of just pain and disability and activity level. We'll quickly look at it and just explain what that means.
Sure. So pain is a great teacher. And the lessons that people learn go like this. People who have chronic pain don't have the same pain day after day and even hour after hour. They have ups and downs. And their reaction to pain going up, as you see in the beginning of the line, is to be less active, to back off, so to speak. But the world doesn't stop when you have back pain. So when you start to feel better, there are things you need to do. So you go to the grocery or go back to work or whatever. And so the activity level goes back up. But over time, people learn to avoid things that they believe are going to cause them pain. And so the descending line of activity means that after some months, you become less active just because you've learned to avoid things that you think are going to cause trouble. And that's disability defined.
Right, and that's how fear can really rule the lives of people with chronic pain.
That's true. People decide whether to do things or not because of their current level of pain typically, but because of their guess or prediction about what the planned activity is going to cost them. So they try to avoid things that they think are going to hurt.
Okay, so if I've got chronic pain, I should see a medical doctor at some point. What can someone reasonably expect from a medical expert when it comes to back pain?
Well, here's what people unreasonably expect, but logically expect, and that is to get an answer about what is causing the pain in their back and how can it be fixed. That's a very reasonable thing to expect. Unfortunately, 95% of the time, honestly, we don't know what's causing a person's pain. And the focus should shift once that search has been exhausted toward, well, what's important to you in your life and how can you achieve the physical capacities you need to do those things that are truly important to you. And that's what you should discuss with your doctor.
So you also have just very basic questions to ask the doctor. There's certainly, it's really about you and what you want to do, but you also have a chart of just some very basic things which are really about health. How can we move ahead?
Right, so the key questions that you can honestly and fairly ask your doctor is, do I have cancer, an infection, or a fracture, or some serious disease that requires treatment? Yes or no? Do I have a structural spinal problem that requires surgery where I really don't have a choice? Yes or no? Do I have medical reason not to exercise? Do I have unstable heart problems or something like that? Those are the 3 key questions.
And then the next one, which I really love, is not how do we heal this and get rid of it, but what are goals? How and why are clarifying those goals so important?
Well, if you don't have a destination, you're never going to get there. And by that, I mean, if you just sort of try stuff, try treatments with no direction, then you tend to end up with exactly what you've always had. And that is a path that is taken in many forms of treatment, whether it's physical therapy or chiropractic or pursuing pain injections and so forth. So the point of the goal setting is to say, okay, what's really important to you in your life? What do you want to be able to do to survive / make a living, to do recreational things, to enjoy yourself, and also to be able to do things around the house and around town that are important to you. And say, okay, these are the things I really care about because they are worth working for. And guess what? When you have goals, you have to work towards them. You can't, it's not like a dream or a wish where you can sit back and hope that it happens. You've got to take action. And the action that you take is to achieve the flexibility, strength, and endurance that you need for these things that you said are important to you.
Right, and some of those things might be work related, and as you say, some recreation, some just getting the groceries for home.
True, yeah. In fact, functional restoration programs were started in the 1980s, specifically as worker compensation rehabilitation programs. But we quickly learned that it isn't just about work, it's also about quality of life. These same principles, for instance, became useful in treating wounded soldiers who are trying to get back to active duty. So people have very different and widely ranging goals in life. And it's by understanding what the given person's goals are that you can most appropriately prescribe the treatment.
So, okay, so we've been to the doctor and we've even determined our goals, say, you know, I want to be able to do X. Now what?
Now you got to figure out where you're starting from. You can do this either by yourself, and the book tells you how to do this, or you can go to a physical or occupational therapist, or some chiropractic offices can do this as well, and measure what you can do in terms of bending forward at the waist, that's flexibility, being able to do repetitive lifting, that is not just once, but over and over, say 4 times a minute, from the floor to waist height, and then your endurance, either walking or running. So you can see from this kind of chart that if you want to play first base for the Red Sox, you have a very different chart in terms of where you're going than somebody who, say, wants to be a computer programmer, right? But you need to know where you're starting from first so that you can draw a straight line from your starting point of flexibility, strength, and endurance towards the requirements of your goals.
And I thought it was interesting in your book that people's goals aren't, once you really like, okay, what is your goal? They're actually quite modest at first, and they might get bigger as people move forward.
They might, but they tend to not change that much because it's such an important part of the goal setting process to make sure that these are the things that you really honestly care about. And people don't tend to change those things that much.
Okay, so we have to talk about drugs and painkillers. I know we can have a whole program on this, but what's effective and what's dangerous?
Well, what's effective and what's dangerous is what's effective and what's dangerous for you. And a big part of the learning process for me was, instead of trying to be an expert and preach to patients about what they should think about drugs, to ask them about what their own experiences were. Because often in these classes, there would be 40 or 50 years of experience with medications. And what everybody finally realizes is only you know what's working for you and what's giving you unwanted side effects. And that includes the doses of the medications that you're taking. So to have an honest conversation with your prescribing doctor about drugs in the context of what your goals are is really important, because that's how you can get to a regimen of medications, maybe no medications, that work for you to achieve your goals.
Well, and what's interesting, you have so many great stories here, because as you say, some of these people have been experiencing pain for decades, and you kind of get the folks that just, where else do I go? And a lot has happened for those people. So how responsive is the insurance industry to this type of recovery program?
Well, it depends on what kind of insurance you have.
Mm.
If you're an injured worker, the worker compensation carrier is motivated to get you back to work. So they are more likely to pay for good rehabilitation than, say, healthcare insurance, which typically does not pay well for rehabilitation. Healthcare insurance is based more on the disease model of fixing things that are caused by a disease.
Mm. So you just took part in a debate about these issues at a conference of the International Spine Society. How did that go? And in a nutshell, where is the medical establishment in terms of chronic pain?
Well, first of all, the meeting was fabulous. This is a group of the best and the brightest researchers in the area of spine pain and deformity in the world. And the debate was great because it revealed so clearly that the medical establishment is all over the map on this issue about trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I'm in the process of writing an essay to summarize this for the Spine Journal. It's actually called Spine, that says, you know, the paradigm that we've used of clinical trials about whether treatments work or not have not taught us anything in the past 60 years. Mm. And what we need is a new paradigm. And it has to be based on what works for the next patient, because that's what patients want to know. They don't want to know how 1,000 other people did with the treatment. They want to know what's the right treatment for them. And we need a new paradigm.
Awesome. Dr. Rowland Hazard's book is Talking Back: How to Overcome Chronic Pain and Rebuild Your Life. Rowland Hazard, thank you so much for joining us and helping so many deal with chronic pain and this very difficult issue.
You're welcome. I'm very grateful to you and to all the patients who contributed to this massive 30-year project.
Awesome. And that's our program for today. Once again, thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.